Good morning. Hello, viewers. This is Coffee Talk, and it's unusual because we're on a Tuesday. Feels like a Monday. We hope all of you had a great holiday yesterday, and welcome. Today's show is brought to you by the Regold Company, and you can learn more about that at regold.com. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host. This is Laura Giacomelli Hankowski. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Ree. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Like you said, it feels like a Monday, but it's great to be here on a Tuesday too.
How was your weekend, my friend?
My weekend was great. This was my first weekend away from the studio. I teach on Saturdays. So for the new season, this was the first time I actually stepped away. I have a co-teacher with me for all 4 of my baby classes on Saturdays. So I have that flexibility to no longer miss family events. So it has been great. And everything was great at the studio. And I had to, I got to be with my family and enjoy some time away. And we're back to the grind. We're doing competition costumes this week. So it was nice to kind of have that break before hitting the ground running with the next project.
Good for you for scheduling something in the middle to break up instead of just heading into that time.
Yeah. How about you? How was your weekend?
I had a good weekend, quiet weekend. I'm Netflix, writing, and many people know I'm trying to sell the retreat center. So this weekend, I was going through all the stuff, deciding what I'm gonna sell in an estate sale and what I want to keep for myself. And I realized I don't need that much stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Time to purge, Ree, not to hold on.
You got it. It's a purge, and made me smile because as much as people are always seeking something bigger, better, I can't wait to downsize to small and no worries and peace.
What brought that on?
Well, this could become our coffee talk.
Right?
What brought that on was the pandemic, the hugeness of the 2 houses that I owned and maintaining them. And that in itself is a full-time job. I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. Now I'm ready to think, what does Ree want?
Yeah, it's almost like time to kind of close that chapter and start with like a new one a little bit.
Yeah, and I want to do retreats and things like that, but I rather do them and let it be that the facilities I choose.
Yeah, I mean, Ree,
things.
Yeah, I came out a few times to Massachusetts at your retreat center. I've done tap retreats there, studio ownership retreats there. I came out there a lot. I took my little car and we drove the 5.5, 6 hours to get there from Pennsylvania. And I loved every second. I told my family it was like my other little happy place, my happy place in the woods, and like.
You got it.
Yeah. So it was
now I have a theme for it. I'm going to call it Dance Life Retreat on the Road. And we'll go to different places. I let that out of the bag. I shouldn't have done
that. More information coming soon.
Today, our special guest from North Carolina is Michelle Soutier. I'm kind of excited about that. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of laughs. And why don't we just go for it? I'm going to flip to our commercial here, and we'll see you on the other side, everyone, with Michelle Soutier. Ta-da! Welcome, Michelle.
Hi there. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Excellent.
Being here.
Good. I'm glad to be here today. I've never done one of these before.
It's going to be fun. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Michelle.
Well, I am from North Carolina, and I have a studio in Charlotte. And I also have a studio in Fort Mill, South Carolina, which Charlotte's on the lower end of North Carolina and Fort Mill's on the upper end of South Carolina. So I'm about 20 minutes door to door. So I'm straddling two states.
Awesome.
Very cool. Michelle, I happen to know this is a truth. You always wanted to run your own business, right?
Yes.
Did you tell me a story that really in the beginning that dream was your own little like counter restaurant, ice cream palace or something? Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, I'm from a small town in North Carolina, and I forgot I had told you this story. So this is a pretty good memory. And when I was a little girl, there was a restaurant called the Dairy Bar in Sanford, and I would ride my bike. My friend Galinda and I would ride our bikes there on Saturdays, and we could get ice cream cones. It was all just deli food, but it's just the coolest. And they had a cross-shaped bar with stationary stools, and the girls came out of the kitchen and would, serve you in this cross shape. And I just dreamed of standing behind that counter. So I actually wanted to own the Dairy Bar, and I did not get to do that. I moved to Charlotte and started teaching for someone, and I actually was going to open a bridal and pageantry store so that I could sew and design clothes, because I love to sew. And but the place that I was teaching didn't have a great deal of discipline in the studio, and I was known as the mean teacher, and I hated that because I'm actually not a mean teacher. And so I was like, wow, I guess I'm gonna have to open my own studio if I'm gonna do things like I want them done. And I wasn't allowed to pick out my costumes or my music. The kids and the parents were allowed to do that. So it was hard for me to teach a lyrical class to a top 40 piece of music that I didn't even enjoy, So I was like, I'm gonna have to peace out and not work here anymore. So that's why I opened the studio. So I actually really wanted to own the Dairy Bar or a pageantry and bridal store. So I'm still open for that, Rhea. If you've got a little cabbage, you can loan me, or maybe want to do a partnership or something.
I'll do the partnership, but it's going to have to be your cabbage. Wait, why do I say that? I mean, I'll do the cabbage if I have to. But whatever you do will be a success, so I'm along for the ride.
So you're just going to get on the ride. I mean, can you imagine this little Dairy Bar? This thing would be I would change the color scheme. We've got to get some pink in there. Pink and green would be my jam.
I would like to think some gender neutral.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah, no, we're gonna do pink and green. That's okay. You're gonna have to get on board with this, Reed, quicker than you are. Like, we can't argue already. This is, and you're gonna wear a bow tie.
Right. Oh, there you go. And scoop that ice cream.
I will, in a white suit.
Yes. And then you'll have an apron. So if you do a green tie on a day, you'll do a pink apron. I mean, I feel like we're coming up with the thing here. I'm going to need to take some notes because I want these good ideas will fly out.
Secretary, somebody out there, please take some notes.
Please God, take notes, and we'll only play show tunes inside of our, at the Dairy Bar.
Yes. Okay. And I feel like every hour on the hour, we should like tap dance or do some sort of like minute performance.
Absolutely. We've got to keep him in shape and young. So.
And I'm going to do Sunday morning sermons.
Because you are ordained. So
I am an ordained minister. For those of you who don't know, I became an ordained minister to marry Michelle Soutier.
You've been practicing that name.
That is a truth.
No,
so yes, our Dairy Barn Sunday mornings, everybody comes in.
There's no N on it. It's Dairy Bar.
Oh, bar.
Yeah, not Dairy Barn.
Okay.
We aren't going to have livestock. We're using byproducts.
I think we should move on. This is what life is like when Michelle and I get together.
Yeah, we get absolutely nothing done, but glad y'all could join us for our banter.
Michelle, I'm going to let Laura ask you a question because I
Okay.
think what I want to ask you next is going to take us on another tangent.
Okay.
Go for it, Laura.
Okay, so you own 2 studios currently.
Yeah.
What was the process of opening your first, and why did you decide to open up a second?
Okay. My first one, and this was in my last life when I was married. My ex-husband, we got married, and he was 13 years older than me, and he was already established in his career, and he was in new home sales, and he actually was a top salesperson in our county, which Mecklenburg County is the largest one in the state, for several years in new home sales, and we took lots of trips and did things, and he wanted me to go into real estate. He said, "Oh, you've got such a good personality for this. You do great, blah, blah, blah." Well, that wasn't my passion. And so I opened the studio against his wishes. So I had to borrow $4,000 from Mr. Wilson at Wachovia Bank back in my hometown. And he knew my mom would pay it back if I couldn't. But I was 24 at the time, so I shouldn't be able to pay that back. And so I took a $4,000 loan because my rent was $600 a month. And so I had to pay my first and last month's rent and my security deposit, but I also had to add walls and stuff inside the building. And so I used that $4,000 up pretty fast. And I didn't have a contractor. I had nothing. It was just me and a hammer and nails and wood. And there was a Home Depot across the street. I'd drive over there every day. And there were some cute little men that worked there that were retired that I would ask enough questions like, how do you do something? And so they started coming over to see how I was doing in my project. So they would help me a little bit. But they were all retired and they were fun. But anyway, so after my first open house, I had 21 students. I needed 24 to break even. So I had to beat the bushes. And so that next week I ended up with my 24, and I did a little thing. I went and bought a sweatshirt on clearance at a place called Upton's. They don't exist anymore, but it's like just a department store. And I bought it for $4, and it was gray. And I had my mom embroider the studio name on it. I hung it up and said, "Whoever brings the most friends for Bring a Friend Week will win this sweatshirt." So I ended up with over 100 kids at my recital, and it was just me, and I was doing everything. So it was a lot. It felt like a whole lot of people. And so then 10 years, let's see, is it 10? Yep, like 10 years goes by, and I end up thinking about opening a second. And then I was like, no, I'm never going to do that. And a girlfriend of mine was the marketing director at this particular subdivision. And it's like Celebration in Florida. It's got its own schools and libraries and a town center. It's just the cutest. Picket fences. Kids drive around in their golf carts. It's really cute. So she approached me for 4 weeks every Monday, asking me if I would bring my brand there. And on the third week, when I said absolutely not, and thought I was going to stop thinking about it, and I thought she won't call again. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, this actually might be a good idea. So I went to 2 of my original students. One was going through a divorce, and she had been an NFL cheerleader. She was beautiful and was getting into real estate. And I said, hey, if I can get Samantha on board as our director, would you be office manager and do this? And she said, absolutely. Called Samantha. She was in nursing, wasn't happy. So I brought them on, and we opened. And at the end of the first year, I had 250 students at that location. So but I'd already had an established brand. So it wasn't as magical as it sounds, because people are like, okay, I'll do that. Okay. But I did have another studio at this point. It's like 15 years old. And so it was established, and I knew what I was doing. The first time I did not know what I was doing. And so now I'm actually looking at a third location. So that's coming up. I'm in my 30th year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm in negotiations now, or I should say my husband is doing that now. My new husband is doing negotiations, and will work that out. But I want to own this building. I don't own the one I'm in now. Either one of them, actually, because they're in such good locations. These people are never going to sell these properties. So a lot of people that are listening to this probably understand that. If you want the A location, you're going to pay the A price. Right. And it's just expensive. So, but I have 2 beautiful studios, and I love them, and I don't want to leave them, but I do want to own my next building. That's my goal, because I am on the other side of 50. And so I do want to have a property attached to it. So that's the plan.
That's amazing, Michelle.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Now let me ask you this. When you at your 10-year mark and you're opening up your second, your studios you said are only 20 minutes apart. So did you
Right.
have wait list kids at your current studio who filtered over into that second
Um,
location? Or no, was it just your brand, they knew it, it was
yeah.
same neighborhoods, people knew each other, and then that's how it like evolved?
Well, I did not, the door to door is all highway. So
Okay.
we don't share neighborhoods at all. And, the theme park, Carowinds is between us. So that takes up a lot of weight. So there was no crossover in that. However, I did have students that were from the Fort Mill area that were driving to me. And so now a lot of those children didn't want to give up classes and teachers at this location. So a lot of them take classes at both. So if I've got a competitive kid that needs to get their ballet credits in a week or whatever, they may take ballet there and come here for everything else. Or I've just got some that just cross over. So, and I use a lot of my employees go to both. So like Mary Catherine is there on Thursdays at Baxter, but she's here every other day. So goes, and that way I make sure I'm keeping the quality of my teachers.
Yes.
I do not teach a step at those studios. And I don't go through the doors anymore. I don't go in the middle of the day and check and all that because I've got this animal here I'm wrestling. At that location, at my Baxter Village location in Fort Mill, I have a performance company of 75 students. And
Beautiful.
in my Charlotte location, I've got 135 team members. And then I have a new thing called the Troop with 70 troop members here at the Providence location in the North Carolina. And they just do one parade, they do my dance-a-thon, and they do recital. And they only have to take one class in order to be eligible to be on the troop. So it's a new program I started, and I was hoping for 50 kids, and I got 70, so I'm really actually elated.
Yeah,
So
congratulations. That's
yes,
amazing.
it's been good.
Can I ask how many students do you have at each location? Because when you told this to me and told it to everyone on Idea Day in Vegas, I almost fell off my chair.
Well, in my Baxter Village location, I have right at 1,000. I have a very big wait list there. I just don't have room. My rooms are smaller there. I have 4 dance spaces. And then in my Charlotte location, I have over 1,600. And I do have a wait list. I've been trying to figure out how to maneuver and finagle, but it's a blessing. I love having a wait list because that means I'm still thriving. And if I do have someone that leaves for whatever, it's like, and yeah, as you know, kids are so overcommitted now. They'll have
Yes.
like 50 activities they're doing in a week, and they'll end up quitting almost all of them by December of the year. Then I have people that I can slide up in their spots. But it is a blessing. It's a lot of moms to keep happy every week.
Yes.
I do find I feel like a scolded child a lot. So I always feel like, I'm walking in the house and I've not made a good grade and mom's going to find out kind of thing. You walk in kind of like, what's kind of happened today? So I've been fighting that demon a bit.
Mm.
It's just hard to keep that many people happy. But I
Yeah.
want to tell everybody the happiest parents I have are my recreational parents. They don't have an agenda, so to speak, typically. So my dream is to not have a competition team. My South Carolina studio is thriving without one. We had one for a couple of years, and it wore my staff out. And so I went in one day, closed it down, and now my 35-person team turned into 75 happy performance kids, and their dancers, and Marie can attest this, are as good or better than my competitive kids at this location.
Mm.
I mean, we do the same curriculum. They're just not as competitive against each other. So it's a blessing. So that's my dream in life, so we'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? Not taking away I don't want to say taking away, but taking away
It
the
didn't start
competition.
with it. It didn't start with it. Am I
Oh,
right?
you
The second studio did not have competition right from the
never
way.
had it.
No, I was in my second year when the girl, Samantha, and she had been one of my original 21 students. And she was running. She was a gorgeous dancer. And she said, I want to do a little competition team. It'll be small. Everybody will be happy. And I was like, everybody will not be happy. That is an impossibility. And I had opened the studio thinking, I'm going to have this cute little dance studio and everyone's going to be happy. Yeah. And so I said, no, they're not going to be, because what was going to happen is I knew it, is they were going to compare themselves to this studio that was established. Because by the time I got that one up and running, this one was 15 years old. So I started at 10 years old saying, I'll never have another studio. By the time I'm 15 years old, I'm opening the second studio. So I have a very established team. Samantha that was running it had been on my team her whole life. She was 7 when she started with me. She had never had dance before. And she ended up being Miss Dance of North Carolina, went on to be top 10 at Miss Dance of America. Like, she was beautiful, great dancer. Well, she knew how her mother was. Her mother didn't complain. Her mother did what she was supposed to do. So she just assumed everybody's mom was like hers. And that's just not life, She figured that out soon. But, the team was up and running for a couple of years. It's just they just wore her down, because they were a smaller team. They felt like that they were doing her a favor by being involved. But when I closed that team down, there was not a lot of places to go unless they wanted to come to this location. But from there, some of them were driving 20 minutes to get to there. So it'd be another 20 to get to me. So it wasn't feasible. So they were going to other studios, and some of them didn't offer tap and didn't offer acrobatics. And those are 2 big programs within my school. So we maintained a lot of those children for 3 or 4 years because they were training in those genres here, but competing over there. And at first she said, do we want that? And I said, yes, we're selling dance classes. Right. We absolutely do. And it was just getting your mindset around, do we want to train other people to win awards? I don't care. I said, their money is green. And why do I care? And so I ended up keeping students, and they'd come to ballet intensives. They do a lot of the programs that we were offering. And some of them would even drive over to Providence to do some. So I found that they were really working, trying to stay within the program somewhat. So it was seamless and it was easy. And I ended up, like I said, now it's double the size with this performance company, and they do a tryout, and people don't make it every year. Like my director there now, Samantha, ended up being so burnt out on those parents. She went back into being a hospice nurse, and I had another employee step up into her spot. She had been assistant director at the time, and her quality is high. So, I just have the right person in place.
Right. Michelle, how many employees do you have?
I have 53. Wow. And that's my office staff and teachers. And my office staff, my offices are opened from 9:30 in the morning until 8:30 at night. So I've got long office hours, but it keeps so much off of my teachers,
And I think also probably your plate a little bit too. If you're not in the level of the emails and the returning the phone calls and doing the newsletters, like I would assume with that many employees, you can't be in the trenches like that. You have to be the leader of that. That's a troop. That's a football team that you are leading. That's crazy.
It is. It's like steering the Titanic. And we have monthly staff meetings, and I'll say, okay, this is what I want to implement. And what that means to my office manager is I need to make systems. I need to put the systems in place like Michelle likes them. Anyone that works at either of my locations for either teaching or office, and they do go back and forth and cover for each other and all this, you have to know where the papers are. We have the same systems for both, so it's very seamless. And that way, when you're coming in off of the day, okay, this is here, this is there, this has been happening, all the notes, everything is available for you. And so I don't have to now say, okay, I need you to put this paper in this folder and I need you to do that. They already know. When someone comes in to try a class, we've got the piece of paper. The teacher knows what that paper means when it gets there. Like, everybody knows. So it's a blessing. It is a blessing.
Amazing.
I have a question.
Okay.
And, most people, when you're having a conversation with them, they say, my studio. Or studios, you consistently say, my brand.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us.
Okay.
What is your brand, and what made you start thinking in that direction?
Well, I can't have Baxter and Providence can't exist during the day if it's got to be the Michelle Show, because I can't be everywhere. And even if I was, how do I make that many people happy? Because you're looking at 300 to 400 kids per day going through each location, because a lot of my children take multiple days. Some take 5 days a week. So, and then if they're at rehearsals, they're here a 6th day, right? So I had to say, I have to hire people and trust that they're going to respect my brand. Now, my brand might not be for everyone. And so I don't try to teach every person in North and South Carolina. I don't have this floor space, but do you want all that? No. So my brand is I have only one-piece costumes, never two-piece costumes. And my daughter is now a professional dancer. And the only time I've ever seen her belly button in a costume is on some promotional shots she did that ended up on Instagram. But she never, through 19 years old, because she turned 19 right before she left for college, I put her in TK. She had never danced in a two-piece costume. She was not, it just wasn't our culture here. When you come in my studio, everyone is fully dressed and in tights. There's no bra tops and panties and all that stuff. And you know what? If that's what you like, that's great. I said, I'm not doing that because in Charlotte, when I first opened, I had the leotards and tights thing going, but every now and then in the recital, there'd be a little two-piece costume or whatever. But keep in mind, this is back when my mom and I were sewing all the costumes. So the first 5 years, I didn't have a store-bought costume. We made them all. So they were modest, but I could do a two-piece here or there. Well, there were other studios popping open and coming to be that were abusing this, it was becoming literally Victoria's Secret's bras that they were studying. And we've all seen them at dance competitions. And I was getting calls saying, do you have two-piece costumes? And when I'd say no, they would keep talking about it. Had I said yes, they were going to hang the phone up. Because I'd get dozens a day. And I said, after I got the first few calls, why are you asking? They said, well, we don't dance if there's two-piece costumes because my husband and my father don't want to come to dance recitals like that. The sexually charged environment is not for us. And I was like, sexually charged? I didn't even understand
what that meant.
Right, because I was desensitized at dance competitions because I was seeing stuff, but it wasn't my kids, so I just ignored it. And but I set kind of the example, if you call it, in town of if you want a more conservative environment, you want kids in a place where grades are rewarded. I give awards for good grades. I'd list the names in the program book at recital of everyone they called honorable dancers. If you're on the A or the AB honor roll in your schools, you bring me a report card at some time during the year. I don't keep up with, they have to bring them in. And they're awarded at recitals. We do service work here. That's part of my branding is I want to keep the dancers involved because 100% of my dancers will become citizens. Less than 1% will become dancers of any kind, whether it's teachers, performers, any kind of artist. And so I want them to think that doing good for the community is a normal thing because I grew up with that. My parents were in different civic organizations. My grandfather said that you should never not do a good deed in a day. When he died, I actually started doing 2 good deeds a day because I was like, well, good Lord, there's nobody good left on earth. I have to do all this now. And it became part of the fabric of my day. And those good deeds are not things you're paid for or thanked for. It's picking up trash when it's down or helping somebody with a cart or getting the door for old ladies or maybe saying to a person that's having a bad time at checkout and you can tell they're having a terrible day because they're dealing with the public like you and I do, saying that color looks amazing on you. And it changes their day turns around. Right. So, I mean, this is what I mean by my culture because, Miller Street was founded by me, and my culture, but these ladies and gentlemen carry it for me daily. Mm-hmm. And if they don't understand my culture, they don't last long. And if they don't respect the culture and appreciate it, let me tell you something, and Rhea's been in my studio, you don't feel uncomfortable with kids doing acro and dance here because they're not fully dressed. They're in tights. Most of them have their team leggings on over their tights and their leotards. So, I mean, they're just dressed. It's not uncomfortable as a male to come in. And when the dads come in and drop kids off or the prop dads come in to bring props, they're not like, trying to steer around, not looking at girls in bras. So that's what I mean by my culture. It's not my studio, it's our studio. And when you go to a dance competition, if we win some titanium award of the week or whatever, it is who's your dance teacher, the Miller Street staff. I don't care if I choreographed it or not. Everyone gets credit for it because no one person builds a dancer.
That's amazing.
Woo-hoo. This is what I want to say, though. It is important for people who are listening is you have a huge brand, But what you back your brand up with is confidence. If you don't like what I offer,
Right.
no problem whatsoever. If there were more business owners who could handle that,
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
they might have larger schools, even though we're talking about people leaving.
Right.
It's confidence in what you want to accomplish. If this is what you want for your child, I'm the place. If it's not, that's okay. And I'm not hurt that it's not the place.
Right.
Right.
And do you want me to tell you, I figured out where I got this confidence from. And because someone else asked this, it may have been you, Ree. I don't know. You may have already heard this. I don't know now what I'm saying it. I was at year 10 and I didn't want to do this anymore. I had like 300 students or whatever, and I had a team of I was probably like around 60 kids, 40, 50 or 60 kids, I don't remember, on the team. Parents were pounding me to death constantly. They were, I'd had my baby. And I knew the second I had the baby, the phones were ringing, when are you coming back? Blah, blah, blah. Like it was just, there was no time for me. It was just terrible. So I decided that next year, I said, I'm going out or I'm going up. My ex-husband was like, wait, what? I said, I am signing this lease on this new place. I am going to go out of business or I'm going to have an incredible business. And I'm getting rid of my C customers. Those are the ones that drag you to the floor and make you want to poke your eyes out. So at open house that year, I had already signed the lease. I knew it was what was coming. Parents would come in and they were only the teen parents. Well, we don't like what's for sale. So I was like this. I'm standing there with my schedule in hand. I go like this. They're bringing. I go like this. Dramatically lick my finger and I go, here's a list of all the studios in the area. And
my God.
And the phone number. I want you to go and try this other studio. That's not a good fit for you. And you feel like that what I'm offering is good. You'll be welcome to come back. And they're like, So my sister, who was new to my business, is running behind me like, no, we're good. Here, come here. Let me help you get in class. She comes to me like halfway through. She goes, are you out of your mind? I said, no, I'm actually getting a mind. I'm now saying that what I'm doing is great for your kids. And if you're upset over not being on the front row, or you don't like that this class is 15 minutes later than it was last year, it was silly things that were just, they didn't realize what the mechanics were behind putting schedules together. And so I just offered them another option. Do you know how many went to other studios?
Probably this many.
That many. Right? How'd you guess? Because I now became, instead of that dumb blonde girl that owns the studio, and the dads would make comments about young and dumb, and you don't have to be smart to own a dance school. And I got all that stuff. They judged the book by the cover. This now became a very confident woman that was, I'm now in control. And if these people leave, I'm just going to have to be okay with it.
Yeah.
When I moved to my new location that following summer, I went up to 650 students by July.
Wow.
I literally was crying in the bed one night, and it was dark, and I was like, kind of like almost a panic attack. And my son goes, are you crying? And I said, yeah. And he said, why are you crying? And I said, I have too much money in the bank. I got all these registration fees, and I thought it was a mistake. And I thought, God, they're going to take it out when they figure out it's not mine. And he goes, don't worry, honey, you're getting ready to pay rent. And he was right. But isn't that so funny? I was upset because I had gone from always just pouring all my money back into it to actually having money.
Right.
But it was because it was confident Michelle meeting them at the door, not, oh, I'll take anybody. You don't even have to have legs. You can walk on me. I'll be your doormat, whatever. I was a new girl, but I took that one straw that broke the camel's back for me to say, I don't care if I'm not in business anymore. Because do you know what I was going to do if the studio didn't work out? I was going into sales. I was going to go into sales because he was right. He was actually making money. I wasn't. I was pouring all mine back into it. I was constantly being upset because people weren't nice to me and they didn't feel good about my product. My product was great. And they all had so much of my personal time. Now, they don't even get that much of my personal time, but they still get my product. And that's what was empowering for me, is that I could pass the baton. And you know what? I've had some employees along the way that haven't been great and have given me a hard time and not seen the brand. That's okay. There's other people out there right now. I've got a staff like no other. Like, I am so blessed with my staff and the stuff that's going on. And you know what? That could change tomorrow. And I will go through times in the future where it's not as great and people disappoint me and hurt me. And usually it's the people that we've raised in our studios that come and work for you and end up hurting you. But a lot of times it's not. So I try not to be worried about who's going to get me next. You know, you have to say to yourself, not one person is going to bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring you down. You're the only person by something you say or do or don't say or don't do. But no other person's going to do that. You just have to continue on and do what you believe in.
Yeah. Michelle, and I have to agree with you. The more that I've tightened up, I'm in season 13 at Libra.
Mm-hmm.
And I think earlier on, especially the first like 2 years, I didn't have a handbook. I had a little welcome packet, and this is when we're open, this is when we're closed, and this is how I get notified.
Yep.
And I remember I had a big influx year 2, year 3, enough to be able to like start a little competition team. And I remember after the first year feeling that pressure, being like, this is going to turn into a monster if I don't get the right things in place. And I went to the retreat center and I bought Ree's handbook for the company.
Me too.
And that's what I built everything around. And I remember when I sat those, I think it was maybe 30 parents down, and I said, everyone's going to come in. Here's my handbook. They're all like,
wait, what?
And I had one mom who was an accountant, and she came up to me at the end. She goes, and then she held it up. She goes, I like all this. And
She's
I
a
said,
professional.
She goes, I said, thank you. She goes, you really got it together. Good for you.
Yes.
And she goes, here's all my paperwork. She goes, I know how to contact you. If my daughter's an issue, you contact me. And I was just like, I earned your trust.
Now that's your A client.
Yes.
And, you know, and this is the thing, is that I didn't know what A, B, and C clients were originally. I just knew I wanted to get rid of those back. And my husband now, Harold, called them the ABCs, you know, and he labeled them for me. You know, he said, get rid of all the C's, put the B's on probation, and enjoy your A's. But he's a confident man, you know.
Describe a B.
Someone that you hear from sometimes has a little odd complaints, but they're not being crazy in the lobby. They're just like, they're those parents that are a little annoying, but just not awful. But I have more A clients than I have B's or C's.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And I'm going to tell you another thing I learned. This new husband of mine has turned my life around. He dated me because of my mission statement for the studio. Now, is that just the most? Okay, so let me explain this, because that sounds like, what? It was a blind date we were set up on, and the guy that was trying to get him to go out with me had been a friend of mine for 20 some years. And he said, I've got this girl I want you to date. And now keep in mind, this guy looks like Jethro Bodine off of the Beverly Hillbillies. Okay. And so he's got a real country accent, and Harold and him knew each other through business, because he was a builder and Harold had done development. And he said, you dating anybody? He said, I got a girl I want you to go out with. Well, first thing, Harold's like, no, not going out with anybody you set me up with. And he says, no, she's a dancer. And he's like, what kind of dancer?
Right.
And so anyway, Harold Googled me, because I didn't know you could Google at the time. I'm not a techie person. He Googled me, and I was everywhere with Dancers Against Cancer, with the Regold events, all this stuff. So he'd seen me speak on all this little clips of stuff. And so he pulls my website up and goes to my mission statement. And it talks about making good citizens, awarding good grades, creating people to set out in the community that, you know, basically get dance is a confidence builder. Dance gives you the confidence to do all the things that make your life great. And when he told me that later, I had to go back and read my mission statement. I didn't even remember what it said. It had been up there so long. I'm like, wait, this must be a powerful statement. And so, it's funny, it had been rewritten a few times over the years and tweaked and all this stuff as I would update my website and all this stuff. But I always kept going back and re-upping it. But I was so used to my mission statement. It was just what I did every day, but I didn't even know what it was. It's my culture.
Yeah, you
So,
live it. Exactly.
so the moral of the story is, if you want a new husband, get a decent mission statement, guys. I mean, come on, you know. So, you know, but it was funny that told so much about me, and it really does.
I'm doing some deep thinking over here.
I'm afraid now.
Buckle up.
This is what I want to say about everything you just explained. Every parent wants their child to be a good citizen.
Yeah.
Every parent is not pursuing the strongest dancer.
100%.
Actually, there's some parents who'd be afraid of that, because that could be a life of what they don't perceive as what they want for their child.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Everybody listening, I look at this and I say, I can sell good citizens for sure. I can only make one great dancer averaging every year.
Right.
Why not sell what you can do really good through dance?
Right. Because I've got, you know, grandparents, and the grandads are my biggest fans. Any fan mail I get is always grandpa, because he's coming to sit through that recital that at other places in 4 or 5 hours. He comes to mine and his act is 45 minutes, and he's left thinking he saw a Broadway show. You've got a big production number that opened if you're in the first act. You have sprinkled in there is 2 or 3 really good things, but you literally have 15 to 17 numbers that are babies to what he would perceive as a professional dancer. He gets up, walks out. Nobody's been half naked. Everything's been age appropriate. There's been lots of lights and sun shining and all this fun stuff. And then there's me standing in the same t-shirt my entire staff is in, because I'm part of this team. I'm on the leader end of the team. But you know what? I've cleaned urine up off the stage so that my other people don't do it. Everyone there sees me doing what everyone else is doing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's getting in the trenches. It's being a part of that to keep your culture what you want it to be. There was a studio that opened for a short time here, and they wanted to do a Broadway Dance Center sort of thing where you drop in and take classes. And they figured out soon that this is not the metropolis for that, you know, because it's Charlotte, North Carolina. But they had, when you came in, you looked through, and on the back, it was a one room, 2,500 feet, one room, and there was a graffitied wall in the back. And it was not like bad graffiti, but you could tell they'd hired an artist to do graffiti. It was a chain link fence between the lobby and the dance room. And I remember looking when I went to Whole Foods, I remember looking and I was like, what is this? Can't even remember the name of it. And I looked through there and there's this cage and there's a kid hanging on the cage from the inside in a tutu, crying her eyes out. And I was like, oh my gosh. But that was their culture. The kid was doing what any combo kid does, but it looked real bad coming for the graffiti behind her, hanging on a chain link fence. And I'm thinking, okay, that is definitely not my culture. You know, I have, walls, I have doors, but they were wanting that New York City vibe, but it wasn't in the right setting, so it didn't last long. But I remember thinking, what if that girl's ever going to ever try to dance again? Because that didn't fit
hard. Yeah.
That wasn't what, her mom probably just heard, went by there and said, oh, let's do this. And then didn't notice there was a chain link fence. She just thought, well, I'll just sit here and watch her dance. So it wasn't until she got into the cage that she realized, oh gosh, this isn't working out well. So, it's all in how you build your culture. You may want that for your culture and you may want what that attracts. I want this. And you know what? There should be different places because this is America. This is the American dream. You should be able to go and dance and do and shop at whatever fits your area. Don't get offended by it. Just don't go there. You know, I don't get offended by other people and how their kids dress. I'm just not doing it here.
Yeah. I swear by the fact that we're all different ice cream flavors.
Yeah.
We all might serve ice cream, going back to the ice cream parlor, we all might serve ice cream, but I'm mint chocolate chip, she's Rocky Road, she's Peanut Butter Ripple. Like, so you need to there's a flavor for everyone, and I'm not everyone's flavor, and I'm okay with that.
No.
Because maybe you're not my flavor either. That's what I think the older and more confident that you get with owning a studio, it's like if you want to be going to 12 competitions a year and have 4-hour recitals, you're not going to get that with me.
No.
And early on, I think I had people saying to me, well, can't you? And I just kept thinking, no, I don't want to go to 12 competitions a year. I don't want to go to nationals. That's
But in
not
the early years, I felt like I needed to do that. Every time somebody had an idea, I tried to implement it because I was like, oh, this is what they want. Well, they was one person.
right.
And that is, they is not singular, you know. You've got to say, wait, is this working for me and my life balance?
Right.
And, you know, and you're talking to a chick who didn't have life balance till about 5 years ago. So, you know.
I always say what you just said this way. Watch out for the people who come to you and say, do you know what you should do?
You know what my new thing is? I say to them, how is your dance studio doing?
That's
Michelle,
what do they say? When you say something like that, do they laugh or are they like
they'll go,
what do you do?
and then they'll start laughing. I'm like,
no, they'll laugh because I
say it Southern, so everything's funny when you say it.
Right.
You know, but I also now, here's another thing is I for years kept saying, okay, after my first recital, all these dads are going to respect me. They're going to see what I do. Year 10, after 10 more recitals, or, you know, like I kept waiting for, now I could care less.
Right.
I do not care if the dads, the brothers, the cousins, the uncles, the neighbors, the whoever respect me as a business person. I know what I'm doing in this business.
Right.
And but I didn't always feel like I knew. I knew, but I felt like I had to keep proving to people. But, you know, and now a lot of times the dads will come in and say, you know what? You are the Chick-fil-A of dance studios. You have just got your systems in place. I am so impressed. You know, and I read your handbook and I'm thinking, Dad actually read my handbook. Like people that are professionals love professionals.
Correct.
And, you know, and even parents that are not professionals, but will start after they try to change you a time or two and you won't do it, they respect you for it so much. You know, you can't be bought, you can't be made, you can't be scared into it.
Agreed.
Michelle, I've visited you many times. We've been in different places. There's one thing I never see you do, and that is gossip or talk about other people or other studios. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because I always say if I'm looking in their window, I'm not driving to my studio. So everything I do is forward driven. And if I'm worried about everything, like in the earlier years, I was like, oh, I hope no studio's open. I'd drive around, make sure nobody was opening a studio. Okay, what? I already had more kids than I could do. I was by myself in that building and I was worried about something else. And it just, years ago, there was a guy that worked across town. He was in Dance Masters with me, and we did not have the same brand. And he was working for another studio. Well, they merged with a studio in my area. I didn't know it. They were a mile down the street too. So I saw him at an event, and he was like, "Did you hear? I'm going to be teaching in your back door." And I'm like, "You are?" He said, "Yeah, we merged with such and such." And I was like, "Oh, cool." He says, "Tell me you knew this." I'm like, "No, how would I know this?" He says, "What, do you live under a rock?" I said, "No, I live in my studio." Well, then he didn't last very long in this area. And though he ended up back over at that other studio, they demerged because this program didn't have the same culture either. And he said to me, "This blows my mind." He's told me this 3 or 4 times over the years after this, that you don't pay attention to what's going on at these other studios in your area. And I said, "Why would I? Like, I'm not training there and I don't employ them. I don't want their employees because that only brings about, you know, rage and upset for everyone involved. I don't care. I don't care what they're doing." You know, the only seminars I've ever been to are the Regal seminars. And say this because I started doing it when I was early. The first person I ever heard speak about anything was Debbie Roberts through Showstoppers. She came to North Carolina, to Dance Masters of North Carolina, and did a little seminar when she wrote a book. And it was this book that is this book of it's about life, and it's got quotes, so you can go through and pick quotes to put on the back of t-shirts. That's why I bought the damn book. Okay, so clearly it's still at my fingertips. So I heard her speak. Well, then I opened my studio, and then Ree Gold, who I was in love with as a 10-year-old, he was doing this. What did you call it the first years, Ree? I know the
Project Motivate.
Project Motivate. In the Gold Rush magazine, I lived by it. And that's where I got my information, not paying attention to what Sally's School of Dance is doing, because she doesn't have as many kids as I've got. So why do I want to do that? So I kept, every time he'd say, do what you do, be you, he'd say all these things. I'm going, okay, this is what I'm really good at. So if I want to instill clogging in my studio, I've never had a clogging shoe on. So I'm going to be a fool if I try to spend all my time learning how to clog because Sally down the street's clogging. I need to really focus on getting my jazz group and getting more kids in that jazz class. Whatever, you just can't be everything for everybody. That is also, as a mother, you can't be everything. You got to be your kid's mother, not everybody's mother. And when you are helping at school, you would volunteer for a position. You don't volunteer for all the positions in the school. Focus on what you're good at. And that's what Ree told me. And, people are like, oh my God, we still see you at all these Ree Gold events. If you weren't speaking, would you still be coming? And I'm like, yeah, don't you see me sitting in on the seminars? And a lot of people don't, because I sit in the very back. I kind of slither in and sit. I want to really hear. I don't always want to be asked a question. I want to hear. Because if your mouth is shut and your ears are open, you're going to get double the information. So that's, and I had to learn that the hard way because I was a talker when I was in school. But I just learned this from having been at the Ree Gold seminars. And do you think it works? Well, it worked for me. I've got 2 very large studios in North Carolina. So I feel great about what I've learned. And, it's like when you go to a dance competition, they got light shows and, 7-foot trophies. Then you go to another event that doesn't have as many lights and doesn't have as big of trophies, but you got the same judges, same dancers are going to it. I'm not going to be bought in by lights and flash and, I'm going to run over there. They told me I can get 800 more students. Well, who the hell can teach 800 more students, So it's like, I just keep going with what I know works. And you go back and you can't go enough and say, oh, well, I've already learned everything he knows. Well, my God, every time I think, wow, I've heard it all, he comes up with something else I think about. And then also is sharpening my tool. I'll go to a class and he'll offer something and I'll go, you know what? I forgot I used to do that. Or I've kind of gotten away from that thought pattern. I need to get back on that, and so it's just staying consistent. And every year I need a seminar that feeds my soul, that tells me, A, you're doing great, keep it up, or you're doing great, here's a few more things to add or consider or think about. Are you low in this area? Let's stop and look at that area. So are your combo kids not showing up? What are you not doing? Are your best teachers in there? All those questions he asks you in all these seminars. So that has kept my tools sharp. I don't need to worry about the girl next door. I really want her to thrive. I hate seeing businesses go under. Now, do I want her to thrive off my students? No. I want you to keep your paws to yourself. Do your thing. You get what you do. But none of these studios in my area are my culture. They are their own culture. Some may have some crossovers, but just being confident. So that's what keeps me from worrying about what's going on in gossiping. And my thing is this, these poor women in this area with these studios, they're dealing with the same thing I am. But I will tell you what I don't mind is when I send a kid away and they end up in their lobby and not mine. I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to say anything bad about them because they're literally in the trenches like I am. We're all in the foxhole.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. No one understands us like how we understand us.
No.
Studio ownership is not a normal business. It's not the normal 9 to 5. I always say you're dealing with people's most precious possessions, their children. Yep. Like dealing with the most important thing in their lives. And it's just a different, we're not Walmart. It's just so different. And especially because it's not soccer. Soccer's a fall sport. Then you have spring this. Like, we are a part of their lives for such a long period of time, over and over and over again, if you had that lifelong enrollment with you, which is what you hope for. So it's a completely different relationship that you're building with people. It's totally different.
It is. And, my sister, a girl left our program, owed me a ton of money. And on her way out, she was a tap soloist that my sister had just poured so much time into. Mm. And the mom on the way out said something, and she goes, oh, and if you're worried about her missing you, don't worry. We change teachers every year at school. What's the difference? Of course, the kid didn't end up dancing much longer after that. She went to the next studio and took them for a bunch of money too. And Allison said that was the most painful thing that she could have said to me. Is it was no big deal. She's like, she stopped to remind her, don't worry, you won't be missed. You know what? She's right. People do move on, and you do have to say they are used to moving to a different grade and a different teacher every year in school. And some people take that on. So learn not to take that so personal. That is what I have not mastered. I take everything personal.
But that person was evil for saying that.
Oh my God. And Allison had not done, there had been no falling out, anything. She just didn't want to pay her bill. And it was over $5,000. And, and I had been, supporting their family business, sending people to her husband's chiropractic stuff. And that was our thank you, but people are not, you can only be the good one. You can't control other people. So Allison is very sane, but that one stung. But I said, you learned something from that, didn't you? She said, I learned that is how some people do think. And it does make sense.
Michelle, I think you said Sally's School of Dance when you were saying like comparing or, something. Yeah. So you got this message.
Sally's School of Dance. Oh my God, that's funny. I was going to say, yeah, we don't even have a Sally's School of Dance.
I thought that was pretty funny. Thanks to
oh my God. Well, hey, Sally. Oh my gosh. I always said if I had a little girl, I was going to name her Sally Jane. And I didn't. But, I love the name Sally. It makes me happy.
I use the name Susie all the time.
It's the S names.
Yes.
They're the happy names.
Michelle.
Yep.
Give us some final words of wisdom, my friend. And know this. I know that I have you present seminars at the conference and stuff. Sometimes I think you and I should just sit down and do conversations.
If we could have a vodka talk, I feel like I would be entertaining.
Okay.
I mean, I'm throwing this out here, and I'm out.
Okay, now you're talking. Some martini glasses. You into that?
I mean, I could even provide that stuff. And, I'm way more entertaining if you'll let me have a cocktail. My God, you caught me early in the morning. I've had 2 baby classes today. There just wasn't time to get juiced up to really talk. But yes, you and I should just get on that stage and go at it. Go ahead and get Greg to schedule us in every night at 8 p.m. Show up.
Okay, we got it. I want to say hi, Laura in Wyoming, and thank you to Laura, my co-host. Thank you to Michelle. Look, we already have somebody coming to attend the martini.
See, I told you, I have our first person. I'm full of good ideas. Have me back.
I will. I'll always have you back. Know how much I appreciate you. You are an awesome person. Everything about you is your brand, and you live up to it all the time.
Yeah. Proud of you so much. It was fun seeing you, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. It was amazing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'll see y'all soon.
Take care, everybody.